Okay, we're about to pot the end cap. This is going to be great. For me, this is the critical moment of building the entire ROV. There's a ton of work that you've done to get these motors ready, the battery packs ready. It's worth double and triple checking everything to make sure that the lengths are right, that you have the tether going through. A lot of people forget to put the tether in through the end cap. Everything's got to be perfect because you get one chance to do this and you want to do it right. Also, one thing I forgot to mention in the last video is there's an important step. I took a hot glue gun and I kind of put the nozzle into these little slits and just injected a bunch of hot glue into this area where the wires come out. And that's what's going to keep the high sol E90 from oozing, across these wires and out of this hole. You don't want that to happen. So I just filled it with hot glue so that it didn't look like there were any leaks. And then after I pot this for the next hour or so, I'm gonna have to kind of babysit it. I'm gonna look for any high sol that might be coming out through little holes in the hot glue that I didn't catch. And then if that happens, it's okay. You just have to be ready with a paper towel and you wipe it away. And then if you have your hot glue gun, you just patch that hole by putting a little bit more hot glue where the epoxy was coming out, where the hole was. So yeah, that's the reason there's all this hot glue here. It may not be perfect, but as long as you're watching over it as the E90 is curing, it should be good. You should expect after you pot this to need to babysit it for like an hour or maybe even 2 hours. You can be watching a movie or just checking in every 20 minutes or so. So here's my E90 FL. It seems to work the best in our experience. We had to look around a lot to find an epoxy that worked right. So as I push on this nozzle, you can see it's mixing the two epoxies together.
So pretty.
It's very pretty. Again, I'm making sure that these wires are not touching the edges. And then here's what I'm going to do. The first step is I really want this to be like inside the wires. So I'm kind of digging the nozzle into the wires, kind of pushing it in. And then another thing I like to do, I'm going to switch sides here, is to make sure that the epoxy gets into these little areas underneath. Remember, it's very thin and it cures slowly, but even still, you don't want there to be any air bubbles. So you want to kind of inject it low down into the places where air bubbles might otherwise accumulate. So I'm doing that, just kind of pushing it hard. And now I'm going to, once again, kind of try to go in between these wires with the nozzle and just inject epoxy into that. There we go. So you can kind of see the action here. All right. And always have a few paper towels ready. You can see I've dribbled a little bit of epoxy on the edges here, but that's okay. All right. Now I'm actually out of epoxy here. This is an old cartridge, but I've got others, so I'm going to switch those out. So I'll get those in a bit, but just to start out, you can see here I've got epoxy and I'm moving this around. I'm moving it up and down laterally, or longitudinally, I mean. This longitudinal movement's really important. Do that a lot. You can see there's a few little bubbles. They start looking just like little kind of pimples or things that are coming out. Move it around. Visually through the clear acrylic, I can see that it's kind of oozing in this way. That all looks really good. So, I mean, this takes more than an hour before it even becomes slightly hard. It's going to be viscous for quite a while. So I can afford the time now to go switch out for a different epoxy cartridge and fill it up the rest of the way. But this is kind of a good idea of how to start.